of a spy isn't as glamorous as I thought. But it isn't dull.
And I've run out of trailers to play. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker, and soon to be joining me is DB Fastbinder. He had to take a call. So yeah, hope everybody had a good week. Kind of a slow week in news again, or a few interesting things. We've got some good topics lined up for us to talk about, I think. Hopefully not too dry or anything like that. We were talking, DB and I were talking before the stream, and we were kind of saying that our show kind of has a bit of a theme this week, and it's also, kind of like what was I going to say? Oh, sorry. Our thing of the week also has a bit of a theme too, so that'll be an interesting thing to talk about. And there he is.
Sorry about that. Had a little bit of. It's funny. Like as soon as that trailer started, the first trailer,
yeah,
there goes there goes my phone. Oh, hey, Chinggis.
Hey, Chinggis.
But it's like, thankfully it wasn't anything too serious, but still, it's just like, okay, that timing, man. Work's been out for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yes, DB's alive.
Yes. Well, arguably. Also, if you hear the faint sound of a fan in the background, it is currently 87 or 86 degrees in my apartment. So that you are not going to not hear that fan sound. So yes. DB is alive for now, but we'll see how long that lasts.
Yes. Yeah, before the heat may take him or not. Hopefully not. So if you're new to the show, we always talk about we do our thing of the week and then do our little box office report and then get into the topics. So for my thing of the week, and as I mentioned when you were away, our thing of the week kind of has a similar. We picked things in the kind of the same genre.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah,
because it's not even like they make all that many movies in this genre anymore.
I know, yeah. So my thing of the week is the movie adaptation of Uncharted. Now I have played I've done at least one playthrough of all 4 games.
Okay.
So I know a little bit about the characters. I know a little bit about their backstories and that kind of thing. This movie, I would say, pretty faithful to the characters. Faithful to the overall, like, okay, Nathan Drake is although this movie's more of an origin story because it's
okay.
Nathan Drake is
So does that kind of count for the elephant in the room casting?
Yeah. That's why they cast Tom Holland as Nathan. Yeah, so you got Nathan Drake, mid-20s Nathan Drake, and then you got probably I would say mid-40s Sully. And I thought they were interesting casting decisions, and part of me wonders if because I mean they could play father and son, that's not why they cast the two of them together.
I have a sneaking suspicion that the reason they picked these guys is one, they can try to milk Tom Holland's Spider-Man star a bit, and he's already, deep in Sony. But
Right.
number two, he's got a lot of years left in him. Meanwhile, like what would seem like more like a logical casting based on what little I know of the games would be Mark Wahlberg in the main role and an older man as Sully.
Right.
But that wouldn't, you couldn't necessarily guarantee you could make movies with him for another 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and of course Sully, because that's the thing in the games. I want to say like Nathan Drake's like probably like early 30s at the start, and then Sully's probably like mid-late 50s. But yeah, this I mean it follows the same beats. So I was trying to remember the other Uncharted games. Problem is they all have a formula. The formula is Nate and Sully have a treasure that they're trying to find, and they're rather by rather unscrupulous means, and they got a bad guy who's also trying to get the treasure before them, and a bunch of stuff happens, wild hijinks ensue, and then they end up with nothing at the end, or not as much as they were hoping for.
So it's like a Indiana Jones who wasn't out to put it in a museum somewhere.
Right. Yeah. They don't care about putting it in museums. They want the money.
Actually, would it be safe to say it's like, what if Han Solo was Indiana Jones?
Yes.
Okay.
That is a good characterization. So with this movie, you've got Nathan Drake, and you actually get into a little bit of his backstory, which they did in the fourth game. And hey, D. Ryan, good to see you. So just followed the events of the first Uncharted. Hell, maybe even Uncharted 4 that I was thinking the same thing too. The other thing is you probably you saw the trailer, didn't you, D? Or
at some point I probably did.
Yeah, so in the trailer, there's a part where he's like hanging out of the plane with all the cargo that's attached to it, and he's jumping over on all the cargo things. That was in the third game, and I kind of remember doing that because you're jumping over all those, these cargo things, and then you get a quick time event where something's flying at you, and you got to duck at the right time.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I can see why that would stick with you.
Yeah, that was but yeah, this movie was, I mean, it's all right. It's a fairly, it was able to keep my attention, but I wouldn't call it a great movie or anything like that. I mean, it's I'd probably put it on par with this might be a little harsh, but probably somewhere in between like Temple of Doom and Crystal Skull.
Oof.
Yeah. Chris Gore has an interesting way of characterizing some movies. He's got one I think fits with this. This is the perfect movie to watch when you're folding laundry.
Oh. Yeah. So it's not one that you'd want to be wrapped in attention on. Like you'd be screwing around on your phone or doing some task, and you just want a distraction. Right.
Yeah. It's the story isn't that complicated, and there's one thing that they did though. I thought it ticked me off and surprised me at the same time. D. Rhino said, or better yet, focus on an older Drake and both him and Sully encountering Chloe to start as a prequel film. Then, that would be a good way to go with it too. Chloe's in this movie. For those of you who are wondering, and she was a character in the other games, and no Elena because they haven't met Elena yet. although there was a blonde at the beginning of the movie when Nate is working at Nate's working as a bartender, and he lifts a diamond ring or diamond necklace off this cute blonde girl. Part of me wonders if that is an Elena. But yeah, it's but anyway, getting back to what ticked me off and surprised me. So the baddie in this movie is I believe the character's name is Montoya. He's played by Antonio Banderas, and right at probably I think at the end of the second act, the bad girl assassin that he hired, or bad, whatever, just kills him, straight up kills him while he's making this big speech. So they pulled a Ryan Johnson. And but what gets me though is when she becomes the main baddie. It's a black woman with unnatural hair color. Which I'm a little surprised that they did that, given how Hollywood is these days.
Yeah, although there's this weird thing that I've noticed where people seem to be like less interested in is the person a hero or a villain, and more just being seen, which seems strange because you would think that you would want to be seen as the hero, but
well, yeah, but yeah, you would think, but I mean, it's surprising, but I mean, I'm an equal opportunity villain person. I mean, I really don't care, but
right.
Yeah.
But I always find that really unsatisfying because it's like there's this game. Oh, I can't think of the name of it now, but it's basically like basically Power Rangers if it was a tactical RPG like Final Fantasy Tactics, which was actually a pretty decent game in my opinion. Although the mecha sections were so boring.
Oh.
Which you think that'd be the coolest part, but no, I enjoyed the running around as your colored Rangers, and you could customize your different things. And my team's cry when they summoned the robot was, "Let's get this over with." I also decided on a whim to have the main, like the Red Ranger, be a Asian woman named Sakura, and I named the group Sakura and the rest of them. Which led to one amusing bit where you had like a storyline where one of the characters was feeling underappreciated. Hey, you're a very important member of Sakura and the rest of them.
Yes.
I bring that up because the whole time you're fighting this kind of glam rock villain named Lord Gaga, and he keeps doing stuff and you just get more and more irritated with him. And then at the absolute last minute, some hyperdimensional villain that he was secretly working for the whole time that you've never seen in the game kills him. It's like, wait, and then you fight him. It's like, I wanted to kill Lord Gaga.
Yeah.
you all your buildup was about that villain, not this sudden surprise replacement villain.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like they did a similar thing here.
Yeah, they did, and yeah, because that's the other part of the Uncharted formula is at the end of the game, the final, you have a final, at least with the fourth game. I can't remember if it was the case with the other ones, but you have a final confrontation with the main baddie. Where Nathan Drake and the baddie are, boom, boom, boom.
Right, because that's good storytelling.
Yes. Although, yeah, and I will say too, it kind of got annoying watching Tom Holland just like bouncing off of everything, running around and yeah,
You aren't Spider-Man right now, buddy.
Yeah, he was doing quite a bit of parkour, which that's which is in the games too. So I won't throw shade about that, but yeah, it's like, oh, parkour, that's very 2006.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, Dean Rhino. I mean, it's not a bad movie. I mean, if you got like a not a horrible movie, but not a great movie. I mean, if you got like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon and you got nothing else to do and nothing else to watch, I mean, good way to kill a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Meanwhile, kind of the companion movie to this one. Like, it's weird. Like, this is a genre that Hollywood doesn't do very often. But like, both of these movies were released within 5 weeks of each other. So I did The Lost City, starring Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. I think I come away with it a little less positive than you did with Uncharted, because like I would probably put it in a similar sort of category, but I found myself rather annoyed with the movie. Um, so a couple of interesting things. First off, they have the cop from Only Murders in the Building. And when I was watching the movie, I was like, why do I know who she is? I don't really watch much anymore. And I was like, oh, that's her. Okay. But the overall premise of the movie is that Sandra Bullock is a romance author who kind of sees her job as meaningless and stupid. And Channing Tatum is her cover model who like is on every single cover. And she's writing what she thinks is the last book in the series when Harry Potter here shows up and offers her, I need your expertise for something. And she says, no. And so he kidnaps her. So the reason this got on my radar is it was kind of one of like the more major movies to come out in the first quarter of the year. It's so I kept hearing about people were talking about the box office and things. But I, like a lot of other people, gave it a look when we saw Bullet Train and said, oh, Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum have minor cameos in that movie. And Brad Pitt, who's the star of Bullet Train, has a minor role in this movie. So I'm curious. I saw one side of this kind of flipped equation. Let's take a look at the other.
Yeah.
So, but basically, it's like it's a little bit rote. I have a problem with the dialogue where it's very much, dialogue where it feels like the characters are commenting on that a situation is stupid.
Yeah.
It's like the author. It's like instead of the author going, maybe I can find a way to like make what I want to happen without making the character seem dumb. Nah. Like, spoiler. Harry Potter, the villain here, does lose in the end.
Well, yeah, of course.
Right, because it's not Ryan Johnson movie like yours was. It's he's the baddie from start to finish, but he pretends to be another victim of it and thinking, haha, I've killed those two meddlesome people and I've gotten rescued, so I can just pretend nothing happened. Well, then they show up and it's like they're on this rescue boat, like, hey, he kidnapped me. And he proceeds to try to run towards the back of the boat. And somebody actually says the line, where do you think you're going to run? You're on a boat. And it's like, okay, I get that you didn't want to do another set piece. You already kind of had your big set piece because you had like an action scene. But on the other hand, it's like you're really undercutting your villain when you do that.
Yeah.
Like he was actually kind of I actually liked him in this role a lot. He was very like animated, and you could tell he was a little bit unhinged because of some inferiority complex that he was trying to deal with.
Yeah. He's very slight of stature. I'll put it that way.
Yes. But the other thing is that Sandra Bullock's character is like a genius because she was going to do books about archaeology and history and things like that, but nobody actually wanted to read her books, so she threw together a romance novel and it took off when they put him on the cover. So and she like has this long series of books that she's just kind of bitter that that's all that people seem to care about from her. Meanwhile, I would say that Channing Tatum's character's IQ is maybe a little bit above room temperature, maybe a little bit.
Okay.
He is not as stupid as Chris Hemsworth's character from Ghostbusters 2016, where he literally like, "Ow, that noise is too loud," and covered his eyes.
Oh God.
Which is like that is profound, and I'm using the term medically. That is a profound mental retardation right there. If you actually
do that.
Channing is not quite that bad, but he is like it's this weird thing I've noticed where Hollywood seems to be much more uh, willing to make male bimbos at this point, is what I'll call it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you might go, well, Sandra Bullock is in this kind of onesie for most of the movie. Isn't that kind of equal opportunity? It's like, I mean, I had a crush on Sandra Bullock when I was 10 and she was 40,
Hmm.
as opposed to now when she is,
Older.
hitting 60. And I think I mentioned this for my Bullet Train review, that I
Uh-huh.
thought that whatever work she had done was kind of botched. I don't know if it was better makeup, lighting, or a little touch of CGI, but she looked less uncanny valley in this movie than she did in Bullet Train.
Ah,
So it could just be, or maybe it was because she wasn't blown up to a full movie screen for me to look at
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
versus my 50-inch screen. So, but anyways, so that might have just been uh, right.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, like, it is like he does step up as the movie goes along. It is a romance movie, it adventure
Mhm.
movie.
Mhm.
It's not awful. My parents watched it and loved it. Which I kind of, as I was watching, I said, my parents would love this
Yeah.
because they don't mind ironic dialogue and things like that. So it's like
Yeah.
that's just become a pet peeve for me because I've realized that I occasionally catch myself doing it, and I always go back and eliminate it.
Mhm.
Like I very rarely let myself do that type of thing just because it is lazy writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, There's also a bit in the after credits that's just so stupid. Like, just it's if you watch the movie, you will know what I'm referring to, and it's like, wait, you built a movie on that? Uh, or actually, you built a whole like premise of the movie on that. It's basically based on the premise that you only use 10% of your brain,
Yeah.
it, which like as far as like things to make a thing, like it's like making a movie, or it's like having a major plot point in a movie being that you eat 8 spiders a year by mistake while you sleep, or let's see, what are some other myths out there? Oh, make a plot point in the movie that gum in your digestive system stays around for 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's very stupid, and it kind of soured me. So
Mhm.
if you watch the movie and really enjoyed yourself, I would probably say you can skip the after credit scene unless you're just in the mood to accept a weird premise.
All right. Well, we got through our things of the week, which were, meh ventures movies.
Yeah, I would say if you have Paramount Plus, go just watch Beavis and Butthead do the universe again.
Yeah.
Eh, eh, eh.
All right.
All right. So let's talk. So like we usually do, let's do a quick run through the weekend box office for last weekend. Um, so I was not expecting to live in a world in 2022 where a Dragon Ball Z movie, excuse me, Dragon Ball Super movie was the number one at the box office.
Yeah, that is shocking.
Yeah, it feels weird. It's not like
Yeah.
it's not like that live action Dragon Ball that flopped. We're talking about just like a legit Dragon Ball animated movie.
Yeah, that's yeah, because usually with anime releases in America, they're extremely limited, and
That is actually changing, and that's here. So if we take a look at Crunchyroll as a distributor here, um, nope,
nope, just
that,
just
that
Dragon Ball.
yeah, okay, that's right, because the previous ones were released under Funimation
Oh, that's right.
because Funimation or Sony bought Funimation, then Funimation bought Crunchyroll off of Warner Brothers while they were trying to slash things and do costs.
Right.
Here we go, Funimation. Da, 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 da. Funimation movies. We've actually seen quite a few movies in recent years post respectable results.
Yeah.
Like the Demon Slayer movie from 2021, nearly 50 million in the States.
Wow. Jujutsu Kaisen did 34, almost 34.
Yep.
Yeah.
The last Dragon Ball movie they did in 2019 made 30 million.
All right.
And the My Hero Academia movies were more limited, but it's, I would say it's like a franchise that has a more youth trending thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but and also Jujutsu Kaisen Zero is actually an adaptation of the manga, where the My Hero Academia movies are. Well, I know you're not a Dragon Ball fan, but Dragon Ball fans will, or you may have run into this with other anime series. You know how some series will have a bunch of non-canon movies that where they can kind of pretend that, oh yeah, this kind of happened, but yeah, if you skip the movie, nothing is affected because it's not based on a manga thing.
Okay.
Uh, like all the One Piece movies, all the Dragon Ball movies, all the Naruto movies, all the Bleach movies, as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
Fit that. So you'd have like a new villain show up. They'd beat the villain in a single movie, which would mean that they would seem less impressive than the villains who took whole seasons to fight.
Okay, so yeah, so they're not like the Cowboy Bebop movie, which I think that movie took place near the end of the show's run. So it's like, yeah, there's like one, like you watch one episode, then you watch the movie, and then you gotta watch the episode.
Right. So it's yeah. So it's right. So they're basically doing the non-canon thing. Now they're not necessarily huge successes in Japan either, going by this international box office. So it's, although it looks like they're increasing over time. So yeah, I think part of it is just that. Well, Dragon Ball Super, that's going to be something that people in our age demographic are going to have a interest in going to see more than the kiddies.
Yeah. Yes.
But the fact that it was number one and it's already made 50 million worldwide is impressive. Now, it's interesting because it's actually trending downward, but I wonder if that's because it is a Crunchyroll thing. They're pulling it from more theaters more quickly, which means that if I want to go see it, I might have to get my button gear.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, on the other end of thing, actually, that's right. I wanted to see if they had the budget here. They did not. So this was animated. Like, one of the downsides of the movie, in my opinion, is it was animated in CGI that almost looked like it was from a cutscene in like an enhanced cutscene from the Dragon Ball Xenoverse games.
Oh.
Which I'm sure it looks better in motion. Because I am going to see this movie at some point, either home or in the theaters.
Yeah.
I guarantee this. But anyway, this couldn't have cost more than like 10 or 20 million to make. So this is
I was gonna guess like about 10 million.
Yeah. So short of an actual budget, there's no way this thing is gonna. This thing is probably already making a little bit of profit at least. Flip side, we've got Beast, starring Idris Elba, aka Knuckles the Echidna.
Yes. And I don't know anything about this movie.
I'm not sure if it's actually supernatural or if it's just a guy fighting a lion. From the trailers, I could interpret it either way.
So, recently widowed husband goes to South Africa.
It is just a lion. Okay.
Oh, it's just a lion. Okay.
So it's basically Jaws of the Serengeti, I guess. Which, it's not bad as a premise, but it doesn't seem to be quite catching on. However, because the movie was a meager $36 million production budget, I haven't really seen any ads for it outside of a couple of times I've been to the theater. They had an ad for it in front of Bullet Train.
Okay.
And that was the first I heard of it and the last I heard of it. So, like, if I might even just assume like a $30 million or something, like a $50 million total worldwide ad spend. Oh, you have to add more than 50. You have to add more than 50 DB.
I'd say about 86 million.
Yeah, like 86 million, which means it's break even if we assume you get roughly half of everything,
Uh-huh.
because it is Universal who isn't like shoving everything onto Peacock right away.
Right.
Man, the heat is addling me. Yeah, we might be looking at like needing like 170 million worldwide to break even, assuming that high of advertising spend.
Uh-huh.
So if on those metrics is looking bad, but with I barely saw any ads. So if it's like 20 million, then they just have to make like 100 million. So it's but it's
Yeah.
weird that it's not doing better considering that there's like no competition in August.
Yeah. What's this movie rated?
I want to say it's an R. Yeah,
Or
R.
that might be part of it.
That's true.
Although, I mean, of course, all the kids are back in school, so I don't think that really.
Right. Well,
But
we'll
yeah,
be there shortly.
yeah, but that is interesting.
Yeah. How to put this? As much as the internet wants Idris Elba to play literally everybody from James Bond to Superman to,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much of a box office draw he is on his own.
Yeah, I kind of wonder. I don't think he is really much of one. I hate to say it because
Right. He does good work.
yeah, he's a good actor. I mean, uh, I think in some cases though he doesn't really get. I would say like in the case of Star Trek Beyond, he really didn't have much to do in that movie, and you couldn't really recognize him for most of it. Um,
He was probably the best part of the Suicide Squad. Just the problem was that he was basically there to take Will Smith's place.
yeah, yeah.
Even though it's like a different character, it's like, okay, you're basically just, you know, you're basically there. Like, you found another DC character who was close enough to Bloodshot or whatever his name was in that first movie to
Yeah,
take
Deadshot.
Deadshot to take his place.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, I mean, uh, yeah, hopefully he gets, a little more recognition because I don't,
Yeah,
because he's a fine actor. Yeah.
yeah. They're even going to talk about. They're even talking about having him play J.R.R. Tolkien in that biopic they did a few years back.
What?
Yeah, he turned it down though. He didn't want to be the Tolkien black guy.
Oh, jeez.
I came up with that pun when that movie came out. I don't have many chances to pull it out, so when I get an opportunity, I take it.
Oh, nice. Well, you had me there.
Right. It's not unbelievable, isn't it?
No, yeah, exactly.
Anyway. So interesting thing that happened. I don't believe I talked about this. Where was it? No, I lost track of my thing. Here we go. So an interesting thing happened. A lot of other people followed me, like why they watched The Lost City in August after it had been out for months. Because you'll notice that it started off like, so this is the DEG Watch at Home Top 20 charts. And this is basically, I think it's like a mix of streaming and paid video on demand
Okay.
is my understanding of this.
Mhm.
Um, and so you get like a mix of movies and TV shows mixed in.
Mhm.
So I don't know what their methodology is, but we'll just assume that it's reasonable enough because the numbers does a good job otherwise.
Mhm.
So basically debuted in the top 10, dropped out of the top 10, but stayed in the top 20. And then around the time that Bullet Train came out, it was only number 2 for the last weekend of July and bopped around the top 10 again before falling off last weekend.
Mhm.
So I think that the people who went to go see Bullet Train decided had the same, oh, well, why are Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock randomly in this movie? Oh, excuse me, Brad Pitt was in their movie for like 20 minutes. Okay, let's give this a shot.
Yeah.
So that's some good cross marketing there.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Now I think that your movie was more successful than my movie, but my
Mhm.
movie might have been a bigger deal for Paramount Plus.
Mhm.
Although, let's take a look here. Okay, Never mind.
Oh, wow.
Uncharted was the top movie in like home video on demand streaming, whatever they're measuring here, for 2 months.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so even if they had a narrow loss on the movie in the box office,
Hmm.
or like a narrow gain, that's pure profit right there, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, and another thing too, I mean, I watched it on Netflix, and I think they just dropped it on Netflix like a week or two ago. So, I mean, that's
Right. So they probably had it like you know, rent it for $6 and buy it for 20 on digital.
mhm,
Um, and then Netflix said, like, okay, well, we'll cut you a check to have this on our service. Like, okay,
mhm.
and it made like a decent amount on home video. It's like that's where having your multiple distribution models and not dumping everything onto your streaming service right away is nice, because you have many ways of making up money on something that was a break even.
Yeah.
But I think that covers our box office talk for the week.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So, yeah, not much going on, obviously, because it's August, but
yeah,
it'll change. It'll change at some point.
I feel like Disney missed an opportunity here, because they could have taken those Pixar movies that they just sent straight to Disney Plus, and like just done like a ad campaign that said, hey, you know, month of Pixar. Like first week we'll have Luca and Soul and
Yeah.
Turning Red and Second Chance for Onward, and make a little money off that. Uh,
No Ezra this week.
yeah, it kind of the news on Ezra is it still sounds like they're trying to salvage this.
Yes.
So, but for once, we have some Warner Brothers news that isn't actually horribly dismal.
Yes.
Yeah, House of the Dragon did gangbusters.
Yeah.
They crashed HBO Max because too many people were trying to watch it at once.
Okay.
It did good regular HBO numbers. The Game of Thrones prequel drew nearly 10 million viewers for its premiere, making it HBO's most watched series debut of all time.
Wow.
Now we'll see how many of them stick around, but it
Yeah.
shows you that you can have a bad ending, and if people like the universe, then they'll give you a second chance.
Yeah, and especially like yeah, like we were saying, well, yeah, like you were just saying with Game of Thrones ending poorly, and then
Mm-hmm.
of course you have George R. R. Martin, who's just being lazy as heck, trying to
Yeah,
not writing the last book.
like at this point, I say just get like talk with Brandon Sanderson and go, okay, look, man, I'm an old fat man. I think he's in his 70s at this point.
Uh-huh.
I might wake up dead from a stroke tomorrow or something. I
Uh-huh.
do not want to spend what time I have left sitting in front of my old 90s word processor that I use to cut out distractions while I write, writing out what probably is going to end up being the better version of what those last seasons of Game of Thrones were. Because it's very possible that Benioff and Weiss didn't actually make up shit for that last season. It's very probable that they got a detailed outline that would actually tell them how to get to where they got to and make it make sense and compelling. And they were like, "Oh, but we have a Netflix deal, so we're just going to put our foot on the accelerator and."
Yeah.
So and now they have, as far as I know, they have no Netflix deal and they have no Star Wars movie. So nice job, dumbasses.
Yeah.
You should have just stuck around. You should have just pasted out another 2 seasons and made a good season.
Yeah. You could be working on Knights of the Old Republic right now.
Yeah. Well, since Knights of the Old Republic isn't happening for at least as far as movies go, because quote Star Wars is no longer a theatrical brand, or at least for right now it isn't.
Yeah, that's
So you know what? I've never been a Game of Thrones person. Um, when
yeah.
that last season dropped, There's this one of there's this meme of Homer going around with the subtitle, "When me, who hasn't been watching Game of Thrones, hears the fans complaining about the ending."
Yeah.
Homer on the couch. Wow, everyone's an idiot except for me.
Yeah.
That summed up my feelings very nicely.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, Dean Ryan is Matt Smith. That's probably why I'll watch it whenever. Yeah, I heard he's in the show.
I heard he was good in this show, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he's pictured there, but yeah.
Yeah.
He's usually good in whenever he's in. I mean, he was a good doctor, on Doctor Who, and then he played Prince Philip in The Crown for the first 2 seasons.
And he supposedly was going to be a young Palpatine in the last Disney Star Wars movie, but there were so many reshoots and wild rumors flying around that who knows.
Yeah, that would have been good. Like if oh yeah, that's right. He was Skynet. He was Skynet in
Genesis.
Genesis, yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, okay, so on Amazon's end, while early reviews are positive, I'm just so tired of the.
Oh,
Can I zoom in? No, because it's reactive design, so I can't just make it leave the screen. Oh well.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I believe I saw a report that in terms of Google interest, Amazon's new Lord of the Rings series has like 1/20th the interest of the new Game of Thrones prequel. This is a problem because, quote, Amazon Studios spent about $1 billion on its Lord of the Rings prequel.
Yeah, because they're doing 5 seasons of it. Yeah,
at least they think they are.
Well, from what I hear, like if they basically pre-bought them, and if Amazon cancels the show, they still have to pay it out.
Yeah. Man, that's why you don't pre-order games.
Exactly.
just on steroids.
Yes.
So, from Business Insider, what does the $1 billion Rings of Power mean for Amazon Studios? To put in Tolkienese, the Co. has not yet closed its fingers, golem-like, around the precious, a major water cooler show that lures global viewers en masse. Because what Amazon really wants is, this is where like the business model of streaming is just so weird. Because it's not like very few people sign up for Amazon Prime with the idea, oh, I'll get a bunch of free movies and TV shows. Right? Like, is that the primary? Like, you have Amazon Prime, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. How often do you watch things on it?
Maybe once a month.
Yeah, I'm about the same.
Yeah.
So, but why do we have it for free shipping when when I decide I want some protein bars and I don't feel like schlepping over to the store to get it?
Yeah.
I can just get a box of protein bars and it arrives at my door the next day.
Yeah.
The occasionally watching something on streaming is more just a added bonus. So, and since Amazon Prime is like a fixed cost, although I mean, they did raise the price this year, but I mean, when I say fixed cost, I mean it's not like they charge you more to add streaming to it.
No, it's a flat. This is what it is. You're for 1 day shipping, 1 day free shipping, and streaming and all that.
Yeah. So I wonder from like a business perspective, what sense it makes to spend $1 billion on something like this. I mean, part of it is that Amazon can, oh no, this thing was a horrible flop.
Yeah.
This will cut into the profit we made this week selling Kleenexes.
Yeah. It'd be a hell of a tax write-off.
Yeah. But let's hear. to continue from what Elaine Lowe says here, like Bilbo rousing a dormant Smaug, the CEO is looking at how many inactive Prime users will be reawakened by Rings of Power. And I think that's the nature of it, is that either they think that this is something that's going to make people start realizing that there are things you can watch on Amazon. I bet you there's a decent percentage of Prime people who are completely unaware that they can watch free movies on Prime.
Yeah, probably quite a few people. Yeah, and yeah, it's and well, and also too like music and books and stuff.
I literally just said this exact trend I was not interested in. Let's hear. Other core measures include what they're looking at is not so much money. It's okay. Actually, they're looking for how many new members does it attract. So they're thinking like, okay, maybe we can get some more people to sign up in our emerging markets, but will it make people stream Amazon more often? Because like maybe you watch this, then you decide to go watch Invincible, then you decide to go watch The Boys.
Yeah, Beecher and Jack Ryan. Yeah.
But there is a decent chance that if this just blows up in their face, like maybe that's let's hear that could be the end for them making original content. Because like let's see here. But there's no doubt that Amazon has had success, but they haven't had a culturally defining show. There's been no massive breakout where everyone is talking about it.
That is very true.
Yeah, like the Boys and to a lesser extent Invincible are the biggest ones I can think of. They try to pretend like the Magnificent Miss Maisel is one, or Man in the High Tower or whatever, but I never hear anybody actually talking about those.
Yeah. They don't. They don't have nearly the same popularity as a Game of Thrones or or Stranger Things with Netflix and
Yeah, I was just about to talk about Stranger Things. So that, like the power, as much as people are like, oh, Disney's total subscriber base has surpassed Netflix, it hasn't really. You have to add Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN, and people who got the bundle are counted as 3 subscribers.
Yeah.
But fuzzy math aside,
yes.
Netflix has the power to make shows that can take a flop. What was her name again? Was it Laura Bush or no? What was? I was just listening. Kate Bush. That could take a Kate Bush song that was seen as a disappointment at the time. So there are very few. Like she never sang it at concerts. They have the power to take a song that nobody cared about.
Yeah.
And let's just. So if I go to Kate Bush on Spotify here, I'm gonna for you and the people at home. How many times do you think that Running Up That Hill has been played on Spotify now?
Oh God, millions. Yeah.
Like, are we talking? Like, how many zeros do you think?
I'm gonna say probably like I'd say about 8 figures.
Okay, so let's hear 1, 2, 3. So like 10 to 100.
Yeah.
The correct answer is 619 million times.
Jeez.
She became the oldest person to ever have a top #1 hit because her song was featured in a scene on Stranger Things.
God.
And I will tell you, I tried listening to her other songs. I don't understand how this was the song that didn't catch on with her fans, because it's like the only listenable song in her discography, in my opinion. Like, it is so aggressively not my style.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't get it.
Yeah. And I think too, like Metallica's song, and Metallica had a song that had the same thing happen with it. But getting back to Amazon, they don't have a show like that where it's just been like Yeah, like you were saying, the closest would be probably The Boys or Invincible.
Right, which my boss has recommended The Boys to me before. So that passes the threshold of somebody that you know in your life recommends it.
Yeah.
That's the only Amazon show I can think of that does that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I've told you to stop showing me this in 2 different ways. I'm going to close this page.
All right.
But I'll just go ahead and go back to the Lost City for a moment. But anyway, so that's what Amazon is after.
Yeah.
And I would love to know what percent, like how many streaming subscribers Amazon would have if they broke it off of Prime. Like what I said, okay, we're rolling back the last price increase on Prime, and now you can buy just Amazon streaming by itself for $10 a month. Like how many people would actually? I mean, for me personally, I would probably just pocket the savings and buy more toilet paper.
Yeah.
From Amazon.
Yes. Yeah, I probably would too.
Because they just don't have anything that's super interesting.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, and D Rhino, I think, puts it pretty well. All they had to do was make a show the right way, hire the right people, but no, so they suffer for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there have been some shows I've heard mentioned on Midnight's Edge that they canned. Like they were going to do a version of Conan, but I think they decided it was too toxic or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. I think I watched that same stream.
I think there was talk of a Elric of Melbourne show, but ironically, at least per an old Razor Fist video I rewatched recently, they decided to can it because it was, quote, too similar to The Witcher, which is very ironic because Razor Fist makes an excellent case that The Witcher is basically it'd be like me making up it's a new character named Tarantula Man who has an uncle who dies. He takes care of his ailing aunt, and it's all about power and responsibility, and he eventually ends up with a redhead. In terms of originality.
Yeah.
So Razor went off on that when he found out about it because he wanted that show, and it's like, wait, because the plagiarism show got to Netflix first. It's canceled.
Yeah.
Anyway. So that I thought was like a very interesting just look at the relative things, and it could just be that it's, how do I put this? You can't fake a user base. Like again, I would love to know what percentage of Amazon Prime users are actually watching a unique show, like their original shows.
Yeah, and I don't know if Amazon will ever release those numbers. They might with Lord of the Rings.
Right. At least if the numbers are good, or they'll try to spin the numbers in a good way.
Yeah, like what Disney did with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And She-Hulk for that matter. She-Hulk, they're like, 1.5 million people. And remember what I said about you can't fake a user base? That's funny. That's like 1.5 million. That's a little bit behind what WandaVision debuted at when Disney Plus had a much smaller subscriber base.
Yes.
I think we had a chart on a previous one where WandaVision debuted to like 1.7 million.
I think that's right. Yeah. And I know She-Hulk did a little bit better than Miss Marvel.
Oh, much better.
Yeah.
Probably because Mark Ruffalo was there. So.
Yeah.
The world is hungry for Hulk content, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Even if Mark is kind of a jerk.
Yes.
But he's likable on the screen. But so this will be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how House of the Dragon sorts out as it continues. It'll be interesting. I'll be very interested to just see what the overall response from actual viewers is, because that there's there's gonna be paid, if not directly paid off, but they're not going to review things badly.
Right. Yeah.
But and that you've had a huge contingent on YouTube that's been raising a stink about the show for months.
Oh yeah.
I'm not super interested in watching it even without that background,
Mhm.
but it'll be interesting to see how it actually does and fares.
Yeah, it's definitely been one of those shows that's just like, people won't stop talking about it even though it hasn't even dropped yet.
Yes. Like it's one of those shows where all the advertising has been so cringe that it's hurt the actual show so much. Like there have been a couple of things we've talked about where when we actually went to go see it, it's like, wait, that was nothing like that at all.
Yeah.
Like I could pray, for example. Like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that one horrible trailer they had where it looked like it looked like the opening title sequence for a soap opera.
yes.
Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Where
Can
did
you
that
do
$1 billion
better?
go?
Yeah, you could do better than that. Come on.
Apparently not. So ready to move on to the next topic?
Yes.
So
I see you're trying to block me.
Man, okay, so I couldn't find the improved picture that they showed, but so to put things in context, actually, Daniel, would you mind going to this a little bit? I'll be right back.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so we've got this little story about, well, not little, but Mark Zuckerberg, of course, with his Meta, which is his little metaverse, virtual reality, you know, uh, universe that he created is apparently not doing as well as they were as he was hoping or Facebook was hoping for. It's genuinely flopping. And let's see, D Rhino, me pulling a Senator Armstrong when it comes to aiding the collapse of Hollywood. Oh, relax, Jack. It's a war on woke. We're not indoctrinating children.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I didn't really get much into it. It was just it basically just the broad strokes of it of metaverse not doing very well.
yes. Now in this case, the metaverse is now, or the metaverse game that they have, which looks like Second Life but worse.
Mm.
Like dropped in is dropping in France and Spain, and Mark released this selfie to commemorate it. And like that looks worse than my old Xbox 360's avatars for Xbox Live avatars.
Oh yeah, those. Oh. Or the Nintendo Wii avatars.
Yeah, like those were at least stylized. Like
yeah.
it's weird because like apparently they've spent $10 billion on these projects, and it's like just a huge drain on the company resources as their other stuff slows down. So it's like,
where did that money go? It didn't go into.
So probably went into making a bunch of facilities, hiring a bunch of engineers, continued development on Oculus stuff. Probably built. They probably had to buy a bunch of servers to try to run all this stuff, like which means that you have to get server farms in a bunch of different countries. Although you'd think that they would have. Oh, actually, no. If they thought this was going to be big, they probably built like a lot of extra capacity for it.
Yeah.
So it's just, man, it's just not good.
Yeah. Metaverse not doing well. Imagine that.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And like, okay, so I'm not the biggest fan of Snapchat, but when Snap's CEO is saying correct things, I will. Snap CEO finally calls the metaverse what it is: ambiguous, unimaginative, and kind of hypothetical. Yep, sounds about right from Gizmodo.
Ooh.
Like, here's the thing. I think when people imagine the metaverse, they're basically picturing Sword Art Online.
Yeah.
Like that's the dream.
Mm-hmm.
What they have is, as far as I can tell, a game that is worse than VR chat at its basic job.
Oh.
Because it's like it doesn't have a good game feel from everything I've seen of it and heard about it.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, so you're gonna just hang out in here, it's the type of idea that if they'd been ready to go in 2020, it might have gone somewhere. And people were stuck at home. Like that's the type of thing where, like, okay, Grandma, we're buying you some goggles, and we're gonna tie this to your phone so that you can talk with so that we can hang out and like on the virtual beach. Like that's basically the timeline that this product was made for.
Yeah, and that's not what we got.
No,
Yeah,
because thank God the world is opening up.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's amazing to me how like, and we're both old. We're both old enough to remember like in the '90s when they tried to do VR.
Yes, I remember the Pacific Science Center had a pretty neat presentation of it, and I was blown away at the time with graphics that were probably completely awful and pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just, well, I remember there was, I can't remember which company it was. They had the headset. It caused neck pain.
Oh, and that's the Nintendo Virtual Boy.
Okay, Nintendo. Yeah. Yeah, it's VR is a bit like 3D, like 3D movies. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm interested in it, and I'm still waiting for something good to happen with it. And I don't, and I don't want to don't want to do a VR thing that looks, as you said, like a cheap knockoff of Second Life.
Right. So I think this is one of those things where it's going to move the technology forward, but ultimately it's going to be like a huge failure, at least financially. And then somebody's going to come in, snap up whatever was built and designed, and figure it out. Like, so this is like an obscure example. Have you ever heard of the company Iridium?
Sounds familiar.
They make satellite phones. It's basically phones that are designed for people in environments where there isn't like good cell coverage. It's like if you're an explorer or whatever. Iridium was the brainchild of one of the, I think it was the CEO of Motorola in the 80s, or at least one of the major executives, because he was sitting on a beach in Aruba thinking to himself, man, I wish that I could make a call on a phone right now, but there's no coverage. Because at the time, there weren't cell towers everywhere. There wasn't the infrastructure. And so he envisioned it. It was called Iridium because I think there were 52 satellites.
Okay.
But I think it's like the chemical or the periodic number of iridium was where the idea came from.
Okay.
And they plugged billions upon billions of dollars into this thing. Like they tried to shield the damage from Motorola itself as they got closer and kind of realized that they'd made a white elephant product. But it still kind of it basically tied up the company for decades. Like they could have conceived, or at least a decade, they could have conceivably been the ones to come out with the touch smartphone if they hadn't been distracted by this boondoggle. So and that's why Motorola was chopped into pieces, sold to Google, and then Google realized they couldn't run it, and then they sold the phone business to Lenovo. And they make a pretty good product. I actually have a Motorola phone, and I have for a while, but it's still, it's not what it used to be.
Yeah.
But the Iridium company, after it went bankrupt, was bought for like pennies on the dollar, and it's been a success, a consistently profitable enterprise ever since. So, the startup cost was not worth it, but once that's wiped out, there actually is like a substantial market for that type of satellite phone for particular markets. So my long-winded analogy there is I think that's what's going to happen with VR at this point, is that like some companies have made money off of it. It's like touch, but it's like the new touch controls. Everybody, when the Wii came out, was like, oh, we'll have the Kinect, we'll have the PlayStation Move, we'll follow the leader, and no.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just remembering Kinect. I was the Star Wars Kinect game.
Yeah.
Han Solo. Han Solo.
Red is yeah. Okay, so if we're talking about Connect games, I think we're ready to move on to the next.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg continues to be cringe. He's selling a product that nobody can really define what its use case is. It's a
Yes.
hammer in search of a nail, as they say.
Yes, and he may or may not be an android.
Yeah, my money's on lizard person.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Last up,
Wes.
Wes over at Thinking Critical. So this is interesting because reports of the death of DC Comics have been coming out from inside sources for many years now. But Wes has never been the one to make the report before. Like it's always been Ethan Van Sciver. And do I think Ethan is full of it? No. What I suspect is that Ethan has contacts at the company still who worked there when he worked there, who might be telling him things that either are like the telephone game has been played, or somebody might be feeding him what he wants to hear to try to make him look bad, or he's hearing things that he hears the March report when they changed their minds in April.
Yeah, yeah, or a combination of all three. Yeah.
Right. So it's like I think he spent most of either 2020 or 2021 saying, "Oh yeah, DC will stop publishing in August," and then August or some month, June was it?
Yeah, it's a lot of that had to do with Diamond.
Oh, that's right.
Pulling out.
Right. Because for those who don't know, the comic book industry used to be basically Diamond's monopoly. They were in charge of distribution for every company that wanted to be in comic book shops. You had Marvel, DC, Image, all your little indie comics. That's where they came through, right? Lockdown happens. Apparently, Diamond didn't have more than like 2 weeks of money, or may not have even had 2 weeks of money on hand at any given time. So it's like they just immediately shut down. That means that if they shut down, Marvel and DC and Image shut down.
Yeah.
So DC pulled out and basically, I think they originally had 2 distributors, but now they're all down to Lunar. Meanwhile, Marvel went with Penguin Random House? Penguin Random House.
Yeah.
But at the time there was like lots of rumors flying around that Disney or DC's going to switch to only publishing back issues as of this date, and it's but then that date came and went and nothing happened. Now Wes has come out and he has a different thing. He isn't necessarily saying that. Some people have reported this as DC Comics is going to be completely cut or shut down. That is not what Wes is reporting here. Wes said that he had a contact who is an accountant who says he knows people both inside of Warner and Disney. And what he heard was that Zaslav's people asked for, or at least somebody at Warner Brothers Discovery asked for the books for DC. Like, hey, we want to know like what's your profit loss on these comics? What's going on with you guys? Like how far do you want to go? We have all that going back many years. Yeah, give us everything you got. So the suspicion is that, I mean, they were willing to cancel a movie they had sunk $80 million into because it didn't make sense to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. And then another movie that they were starting to work on too with Supergirl, and canceled. And then they canceled all their animated stuff that they were working on. They just canceled the Batman animated show.
And they just canceled a Batman animated show featuring Bruce Timm in a creative role. Now, what's interesting is that the suspicion I heard is that they might have decided, okay, HBO Max is not going to be all things to all people. Like, HBO is not a kids brand at all.
Uh-huh.
So it seems like they're taking off stuff that's kind of more kiddie oriented to maybe sell elsewhere, or to
Or make another streaming platform.
that I don't know if they would do, just because they are talking about merging Discovery with HBO.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, D Rhino, since D Rhino says, "I await the collapse of Western entertainment." This type of hard-headed, profit-oriented thinking may actually end up saving it,
Mm.
because I don't think it's. I think that if you ask David Zaslav his politics, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm Democrat. What are you talking about?"
Oh yeah, yeah.
But it's a funny thing. It's easy to be perceived as anti-woke when you're pro-profit.
Yeah.
And so things that aren't profitable, things like Infinity Train, where it is Tumblr style, that's designed to appeal to older people who do not buy toys. And you couldn't really make toys based on Tumblr designs.
No. Can't really make much of anything based on Tumblr designs.
Yeah. By the way, Infinity Train is reportedly a good show, so I can't watch it now because it's been completely ripped off of HBO Max. So,
Yeah,
but
didn't they take Looney Tunes off of HBO Max?
I'd have to check. I didn't hear Looney Tunes, but that's possible.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't take Batman the Animated Series off.
I think DC is like so integral that I doubt that would go anywhere.
Okay, yeah.
Possible though, because anything is possible, because Zaslav is a madman who cares more about money than anything else.
That's true.
Which now that brings us. So that's kind of like pretext to bring us back to this.
Uh-huh.
And when he starts cutting movies and shows that would have been good, what will people say then? I don't know. It's, we're basically years away from seeing what he would come up with.
Yeah, because because pretty much everything that's in the pipeline, that's being made or is in production, was the previous regime.
Yep. So they're like tweaking it, reshooting things where they can, canceling it where they can't.
Uh-huh.
So we're not going to see what Zaslav's vision is for a very long time.
Yeah.
So what that means is that, so that's all preamble. So basically, if they are willing to, cancel huge movies, they may just burn it all down.
Yeah,
They may decide. They may decide that they may just decide that if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. Well, if the publishing business doesn't make enough money, they can license the comics out to other publishers. They can severely scale back things. They can they could shrink the line to 20 comics and put more high cost creators on there on the assumption that they'll make it up in volume. Or they could. I doubt we're going to keep seeing them do what they're doing right now.
Yeah, it's not not feasible. Yeah.
Right. Especially for DC's case. Like they have unless it's Batman, they have fallen outside the top 100 for the most part. For weekly comics. And let's see. And they keep insisting on the same creative teams that are failing over and over again, like the current Wonder Woman team. Jonathan Kent Superman is probably a big enough success, but they just can't make anything that isn't Batman stick. And I've heard enough anecdotal reports from comic shops that a lot of them have just stopped carrying new DC books altogether, or pull list only. Well, what pull list only means, for those who don't know, your local comic shop has a service where they'll do your pull list for you, where they basically rent you a box and you say, I want Batman, I want Spider-Man, I want da-da-da-da-da. And when it comes out, they put it in the box. You can show up once a week or whenever and pick up all your books convenient, and you don't have to worry about somebody taking them off the shelf for you. It's like that's the box copy, or that's the pull copy versus the shelf copy, which is they go, okay, we have 20 boxes at this store. Everybody in that box wanted number one of the new Spider-Man, so we'll order 30 copies to have on the shelf because we think we can sell those. A lot of shops have just started going pull list only.
Ooh.
Which first off, that's a massive cut, but it's also like very technically it's short-sighted, but I also get it because it's like you're not going to have people discover what they want.
Yeah.
It cuts down on your ability to have a random person walk into the shop and say, "Oh, Spider-Man #1. Okay, let's try that out."
Right.
So yeah, I think that. I think that it might be exaggeration to say that DC Comics is on its way out. I think it's going to look very different in 6 months.
Yes, and which just kind of goes with the trends that we've been seeing with comic books for the last 5-6 years.
Yes. And and like I give Wes's story a lot of credence because he's kind of up there with Clownfish TV, where in Midnight's Edge, where things that I've never heard him cite a inside source and not have some basis to it.
This will definitely something to watch.
Yes, because there's a few possibilities. I decided to look up Warner Discovery's the last year's income. They do not break out publishing at all, as far as I can tell. They basically go U.S. networks, international networks, other. So there's a lot of there's a lot of things covered in other that they own.
Yeah.
So it's not really possible to see how big of a deal DC publishing is to them. It isn't much though.
Yeah.
At least on a comparative basis.
Yeah, it's a very, very small speck in a very small nut in a much larger cog.
Yep, exactly. So could they decide that it's small enough that they don't care? Sure. Could they decide that we cut the whole department tomorrow and hey Disney, you want to license DC characters?
Ooh.
I see. Okay, like Disney's a bad example. I go, hey, Image, Todd it's like, okay, so we're gonna have Todd McFarlane's people make Batman. We'll have Robert Kirkman's Superman. We'll have the people with like a track record for those types of characters. Let's go with indie people.
And you might get quite a few people who will buy those.
Right. Like if you tell some people, if you tell them, man, the creator of Invincible is taking his stab at Superman, like that's at least interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, this will be exciting. And as always, now would it be that's why we have the question mark in the title.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you know what, we try to be non-hyperbolic when it's appropriate.
Yes. Yeah. We try not to be too clickbaity.
Yes, probably to our detriment, but
yeah.
Which is why we appreciate everybody who stuck with us today.
Yes. Yes. Thank you everybody for watching. We do appreciate it. Let's see. What did you say?
Since I know we have some people around, let's do a quick Q&A.
Yeah. Indie working with Hollywood, is that profitable long term?
So a lot of indie movies don't necessarily make money. It can often be a way to get your foot in the door.
Yeah. Long term, I'm not too sure. Because like you were saying, like most, the perfect example of that is Roger Corman's company. I mean, you look at all the filmmakers and producers who worked for him before making it big. I mean, you had Martin Scorsese. You had
I didn't know about Martin Scorsese. That's amazing.
Yeah. James Cameron, Ron Howard, uh, Joe Dante. I mean, just a bunch of people. So I mean, again, I guess it would depend on the definition of like indie and mainstream, because those, it seems to be a very fine line between the two.
Right. Like you hear people refer to Image sometimes as an indie publisher, even though most months they're the number 3 comic people in the direct comic book market. So it's
Yeah.
But yeah, what's also now as far if you more mean would it work for these indie people to license these comics? I think you'd still you'd have a big number 1, like they always do. But yeah, I think that if you, I mean, first off, if you canceled DC Comics in general, you'd you would have a certain people who. So, D-Ryan has a follow-up question, but I'll finish my thought. You have a lot of people who would make their way, or if you cancel DC Comics wholesale, you would end up with a lot of people who wanted their Superman funny books and their Batman funny books, and they would follow them to wherever was making them.
Right.
I asked because would they be considered traitors to the indie community since that one IP is now mainstream?
I could see that happening. Because although with comic books, I don't not necessarily know. I know with like music fans, like good lord, like as soon as a band gets any sort of mainstream popularity, they're like, oh, they suck.
Right. Of course, here's the thing: is that's a much smaller audience than than what they eventually get. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
fans like that you don't need. The fans like that want you to stay small so that they have direct access to you and can influence you.
Yeah,
it's basically Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Changus here says, I want to know what's going on with Batgirl that they decided, screw it, it's not profitable.
Right. So the word irredeemable is used at first. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean irredeemably bad. It could mean let's say that I'm having someone over for dinner and I start making pork chops. And I put the pork chops in the pot and I start cooking them, and I'm talking with someone. I can't wait for so-and-so to come over and making them pork chops tonight. Like, that that so-and-so is Muslim, right? From the perspective of that dinner, those pork chops are now irredeemable because I can't consecrate them into being halal.
Yeah.
So by the same token, if you have a movie that just maybe it looked cheap. That's reports I heard it looked cheap from different sources.
The costume looked cheap.
Yeah, the costume definitely did not look good in still shots.
Yeah.
It was apparently going. It was building off of the Flash. It means that you couldn't come out with it before the Flash. It was originally intended for HBO Max, which meant that it was kind of good money after bad to an extent. Because it's not like HBO Max is actually profitable.
Yeah.
So then you put in movie theaters. Well, if you have we'll go with the $80 million figure. Then let's say you had to do another like $20 million to complete it, like as made. Like we're gonna ignore the possibility of reshoots, right? Then probably at least $50 million to give it some sort of marketing budget. Probably that'll be way more than that. But, we're talking like 150 million, which if you get roughly half of your box office back, means you have to make a $300 million movie.
Yeah.
It's like, would you be better off spending that additional 70, 80 million dollars on another, like, to get the Flash fixed up?
Yeah.
Or you could take 70 million of that into advertising for Game of Thrones, because that Game of Thrones apparently had like a ridiculously huge ad buy,
Mm.
like hundreds of millions, or at least 100 million,
Wow.
to get people to watch that first episode.
Mm.
It's like, was that 80 million better spent? Or you take 50 million to advertise one thing, and then you take like 30 million and you seed a bunch of direct to HBO Max movies that are indie budget.
Mm.
You put out one of those a month, and you probably have more sustained viewership than HBO Max gets.
Yeah. Mm.
So it's like everything is trade-offs, and it's funny. Just like I will say that my friends who are more creative oriented are like, well, why it doesn't make sense to cancel the movie? It was almost done. Where the people I know who like regularly buy stocks and stuff, like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Am I feeling like a hypocrite because of the? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you're fine. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
right. Like, there's a level where you can't get too wrapped around the axle about who made what. It's more about, is it good?
Yeah.
You can also follow Chris Gore's advice, and basically for every mainstream thing you see, make a point of supporting an indie thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What did he call it? A balanced media diet?
Yep.
Yeah.
Which, if you're calling for the whole industry to burn down, like, I don't entirely disagree with you at times,
Yeah.
but that sounds to me like you need to, maybe try Webtoon. Maybe if you're not happy with the comics you're reading, there's lots of sources out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there are plenty, and if you're, like we were saying with, Chris Gore was saying with, indie movies. I mean, there's some good indie movies out there.
Yep, and at least if they're bad, they're an interesting flavor of bad.
Yes. You're tearing me apart, Lisa.
Yes, the best example ever.
Yes.
Well, thanks everybody for your comments and contributions. We're half hour past our normal end date, which is not a bad thing. However, my apartment is still nearing 90, and I need to get the fudge out of here. So
like, subscribe, bell, hit the bell, all that good stuff.
All the usual YouTube things.
Yes, and we'll see you all next week. Good night, everybody.
Night, everyone.
The life of a spy isn't as glamorous as I thought. But it isn't dull.
Yeah.